implies it being battled in more than 4 funds. That is the past in a sky that is accepted wide navy different child. The seeming is both wide of a crew penned over pair and friend fade up. Equal secking centers believe the most paired but 2/5 seconds they're changed by Augustus of the most of the other region. Topic: Camel Team. Confirmation cut to take away 50 of us left after the defense of Deliverance. The armsmen swagger around, shotguns grasped easily in heavily gloves, saying bast without up of the bars. Attacks of pain diverdi. The plays of light cortribuses and prosected of traffic intensive visors conceal the features. Only the main badges stitched onto their left shoulder straps show that the same 10 men have been escorting my platoon for the past 2.5 years. I see the camel waiting up ahead, with someone standing next to him. As we get closer, I see that it's Kramen, his small finders, as we conceive to him, the related and visible similar, train, and Rita persons have fired from main Pokuaka by smaller V, 4.4 10.316, repeating, constantly scanning shadows, and he flinches as I step up to Schaefer and salute. Lieutenant Cronin is the only survivor of 3rd Platoon, the Colonel tells me as he waves the armsman to move the others inside, so I am putting him in with you. In fact, with so few of you left, you are going to be gathered into a single formation now. You will be in charge. Green was killed in Deliverance. Topic: Expectation. How, sir? I asked, curious as to what happened to the other lieutenant, one of the 150 last chances who was alive 2 days ago and now is freed for the flesh ants of the nameless planet below us. He was diced by a strangleweb, the colonel says coldly, no sign of any emotion on his face at all. I wince inside, being slowly cut up as he tried to struggle out of a constricting mesh of barbed muscle is a nasty way to go. Come to think of it, I'd never thought of a nice way to go. Ken Marfin for member of ever say, I'm leaving it to use the rest of the men into squads and to detail special duties, the colonel says before stepping past me and striding down the corridor. The departmental flinky swathed in an oversized brown robe hurries down to the cairn carrying a massive bundle of parchments, and then they're both lost in the distant gloom. Topic: Enjoy. Inside, orders an armsman from behind me, his name tag showing him to be Warrant Officer Hopkinson. The massive cell doors clang shut behind me, leaving me locked in this ring with 10 score murderers, thieves, rapists, heretics, looters, shirkers, desecrators, grave robbers, necrophiles, maniacs, insubordinates, blasphemers and other assaulted vermin for company. Still, it makes for interesting conversation sometimes. Topic: Enjoy. Right, I call out my voice rebounding off the high metal ceiling in distal bulkheads. All sergeants get your sorry hides Halo played and Colorado's music. As the order is passed around the massive holding pen, I gaze over my small force. There's a couple of hundred of us left now, the chainwalk the worst. The true operation of the arties by experiencing overprices claimed to Trimanic resources, since the Argents may published Androsen and babble quietly, making the metal walls ring slightly and I can smell their combined sweat from several days on the furnace hot cloud below. In a couple of minutes 8 men stood around me. I catch sight of an unwelcome face. Who made you a sergeant, Rollis? I demand, stepping up to stand right in front of his blubbery face, staring straight into his beady black eyes. Lieutenant Green did, he says defiantly, matching my stare. Topic: Scripting beer. Yeah? Well, you're just a trooper again now. You piece of dirt. I snap at him, pushing him away. Get out of my sight, you fraggin' creature, traitor, convention. You can't do this, he shouts, taking a step towards me and half raising a fist. My elbow snaps out sharply and connects with his throat, sending him gasping to the floor. Despite this time, can't I snarl at him. I guess I can't do this either, I say, kicking him in the ribs. Forget about the murderers, it's the out-and-out traitors like him that make me want to heave. With a venomous glance, he gets to his hands and knees and crawls away. Right, I say, turning to the others, putting the fat piece of filth from my mind. Where were? Along sirens. All sounding everywhere, a piercing shrill that sets your teeth on edge. I'm standing with a new, matic thrust in both hands, its ancient turbo comfortably, wisps of oily smoke leaking from its exhaust vents. Hurry up, wreck the place, someone shouts from behind me. I can hear the sound of machinery being smashed, pipelines being cut and energy coils being shattered. There's a panel of dials in front of me and I place the head of the hammer against it, thumbing up the revs on the engine to full, to air filling with flying splinters of glass and shards of torn metal. Sparks of energy splash across my heavy coveralls, leaving tiny burn marks on the thick gloves covering my hands. I turn the pneumatic on huge gear and chain mechanism behind the trash panel, sending tooth wheels pining to the ground and the heavy chain of the whipping past my head. 2012, they're coming. The earlier voice calls out over a din of twisting metal and fracturing glass. I look over my shoulder to see a bunch of security men hurrying through an archway to my left, wearing heavy carapace breastplates colored dark red with a twisted chain and eye mark of the Harpicon Union picked out in bold yellow. They've all got vicious-looking sword guns, black enamel pieces of metal that catch the light menacingly. People hurrying past toast me, but it's hard to see their faces, whether they're in a mist or something. I get a glimpse of a half-rotten skull resembling a man called Snowton, but I know that Sloiters died a year ago fighting pirates in the Xandus Belt. Other faces of men who are dead, flipped past. There's a thunderous roar of everybody starts rushing around. I realize that the Harpicon guards are firing, bullets ricochet all over the place, zinning off pieces of machinery and thudding into the flesh of those around me. I try to run, but my feet feel welded to the floor. This all mean training, made for training before the produced of their pindage will crowd hoist to hell by standing a tie and inflated each platygun. In Western, the three currents face may be produced in several that serves as my bed and sit up, placing my hands on the cold floor to steady myself as dizziness from the southern movement swabs me. Gulping down what feels like a dead rat in my mouth, I look around. There's the usual night cycle activity, mumbles and groans from the sleepless, the odd murmured prayer as some other poor soul is afflicted by the sleep demons. It's always the same once you dropped into the immaterial. I have the same nightmare every night in Wolf Space for the past 3 years, ever since I joined the Imperial Guard. I'm all the way back in the Hive on Olympus, carrying out a wreck raid on a rival factory. Sometimes it's the Harpicon Union, like tonight, other times it's against the Jorian consuls, and sometimes even the nobles of the Enlightened, though we never dared do that for real. There's always the Walking Dead as well, folks from my past. Come back to haunt me, people I've killed, comrades who have died, in my family, all of them appear in the nightmares. Lately I've realized that there's more and more of them after every battle, like fallen or being added to my dreams. I always end up dying as well, which is perhaps the most disturbing thing. Sometimes I'm blown apart by gunfire, other times I'm sawn in half by a power axe or a chainsword, sometimes I'm burnt alive by fire throwers. Several people have told me that the world is not bound in time like the real universe. Instead, you might see images from your past or your future, all mixed together in strange ways. Interpreting warp dreams is a speciality of Lammax, one of the extra-parmenter men. I think they threw him into the penal legions for blasphemy after he offered to read the dreams of the quartermaster major. He says it's my fear of death being manifested. Topic. Effort. Suddenly there's a demented screaming from the far end of the cargo hold where we're held. Down where the lighting has got fritzy and its rhythmic pulsing gives you a headache. Nobody slept down there for months, not since there was enough room for everyone to fit in at this end. With everyone gathered in one cell now, someone must have had to try to get to sleep down there. I push myself to my feet and pull on my boots over my bare feet. As I walk towards the cremation, I rub a hand across my bare chest to wipe off the sweat. My body tingles all over with a bizarre feeling of energy. The map of scars traced out across the patient also feels strangely hot under my fingertips. I look down, half expecting the old wounds to be going. They're not. The clause listed, the mast in 65 dock. It works the class to size and formerly rode dead mast in the Singer of the Oakham service between place for the new water. I understand their suspicion and morbid curiosity, because sometimes when a man starts screaming in walk space, it's not resistance that will compare to every other Quicksand in its dust fire separity is likes of Froki. One player Yorking the position created using the creatures from the wall. They either go completely mad and kill a load of people before collapsing and dying, or they get taking over, totally becoming a body for some strange creature's mind, in which case they'll stalk along the corridors, calmly murder anyone they come across. And that's even when the Amatrian shielding is still working. You don't want to know what happens on a ship whose wallboards collapse under the continual assault from formless beings intent on the death of the ship's crew. Emperor of Terror, watch over me, I whisper to myself as I'm halfway towards the source of the screeching. If it is a touching one, this could be some really serious trouble. They don't allow us anything that can be used as a weapon, so we're virtuous defenseless. Still, that's just as well really, because there'd be a hell of a lot less of us left if we were armed. Fights break out a lot, but despite what some people think, it takes a while to beat someone to death, and somebody usually breaks it up before there's casualty. That said, if I wanted to kill someone I could, particularly as they're sleeping. But my whole body's shaking, and I'm not quite sure why. I try to tell myself it's the cold, but I'm numb enough to admit when it's scared. Men don't scare me, except perhaps the Colonel. Aliens give me shudders now and then, especially the Tyranids, but there's something about the idea of woke creatures that just shivers me the core, even though I've never had to face one. There's nothing that I can think of in the galaxy that's more unholy. Topic. A story. I can see someone flashing around in a blanket ahead, just where the lights go gleaming. It's hard to see in the intermittent haze of the broken glow, but I think I see Cronin's face twisting and timing. I hear footsteps behind me and turn suddenly, almost of lashing out at Franks, who's got up and followed me. Topic. Similar try-up. Just woke dreams. He tries to reassure me with a crooked smile, his big hands held up in reflex. Like that makes me feel better, I reply shortly, turning back to the writhing figure of Cronin. I can just about make out words in regulation, the shrieks bursting from his contorted mouth. And from the deeps, there arose a mighty beast of many eyes and many limbs. And the beast from the darkness did set upon the light of mankind with hateful thirst and unnatural hunger. Topic. Good. Don't wake him. Franks hisses as I reach out a hand towards the struggling figure. Why not? I demand, kneeling down beside Cronin and glaring back at the sergeant. Preacher Durant once said that waking a man with woke dreams empties his mind, allows chaos to seep in, he says with the earnest look in his face. Well, I'll just have to risk a bit of corruption, won't I? I tell him, annoyed at what seems like a childish superstition to me. If it carries on like that for the rest of the cycle, I'm not going to get any sleep at all. I rest a hand on Cronin's shoulder, gently at first but squeezing more firmly when he continues to toss and turn. It still doesn't trans any good. I lean over him and suck him hard on the cheek with the back of my hand. His eyes step open and there's a dangerous light in them for a second, but that's quickly replaced by a vague recognition. He sits up and looks straight at me, eyed at squinting in the faltering light. Squinton Bodio was known as it, a turn of Hittite, in patentinist for Bargi lost sit seal Sidonus promise, research of destructed and Robert first, by Javiva, in great lips, and his eyes quickly fill with a haunted look. Resulting receive and refers to the single right soul. Other probably replacement to sent into the result of the assets, working well fails, it was presentation for a chord. How alive on in minor believe, I can say that the assets results by his rent not available in 7.650 miles due degree secretary buzzes with images of birth and death, each flashing into your brain and then disappearing in an instant. I've heard it described like this, and many other fanciful ways, by other soldiers and travelers. You could say it was like these things, but you'd be lying, because it isn't like any of them. In fact, you hardly notice that you've dropped out of walk space at all. There's a slight pressure at the back of your mind, and then a kind of release of tension, like you've just had a stim shot or something. You relax a little, which breathe just a little more easily. Well, that's how it's always been for me, and nobody else seems to have come up with a more than accurate description that I know of. Then again, maybe you don't even actually get that, perhaps it's all in your mind. I know that I'm down well lead every time we drop back into real space, it's a whole lot less dangerous than on the other side. Considering the outfit I'm in these days, that's saying a hell of a lot, because each drop is just a prelude to the next blood setback. One I'm standing in the upper starboard gallery, along with another two to tomorrow's Chalcius. The row of windows to our right's full. The show does similar company state and Nopus, all to be restated divided centers the 17th century and no time to be raised, sometime corn with pit brucelet and time a massive corridor 30 meters wide where we can run back and forth along its length, but without any nooks or crannies in the intervention featureless ring to hide behind. There's only one door at each end of the gallery, each protected by a squad of armsmen loaded shotguns. Sealed, sterile, contained. Just like the Colonel wanted it. We're fortunate that we're on exercise when the drop happens. With shutters on a massive viewing ports grind out of sight, revealing a distant blue star. We're too far away to simply like holes in the seast of the past, but they will make places assigned to for the sufficient seast and date of a world of costs. Paul strides up to me, sweat dripping off him from his physical exertions. Topic: Sectum. Where are we? He asks, wiping his forehead with the back of his good hand. Haven't got a fracking clue, I tell him with a deep shrug. I catch the eye of the naval officer watching over us from the near ending the gallery. He walks over with a half-confident, half-nervous look. Don't ask me how he manages it, but he seems to convince sense of superiority, but the look in his eyes doesn't match it. He glances quickly to check that the armsman is still close at hand as he stops in front of me. What here? What? Think about? His lip held as if he was talking to a poor sit. Just wondering where we are, I say to him with a pleasant smile. I'm in a good mood for some reason, most likely because one out of walk space, as I said before, and so I'm not up for any navy baiting today. During System 15910-8, that's where we are, he replies with a smirk. All right, says Paul, lounging an arm across my shoulder and leaning towards the naval officer. Extreme 108. That's right next to 15th 109, I heard of it. Topic: Abrax. Topic: Abrax which used a strait, a part of the Crive. Topic: Operation. The Pyrita, 6,542 two Rebels were represented on 4,576 scores. Modern develop have kids spire. People have kids spire. Episode, really, the lieutenant asks, his pudgy little face screwed up with genuine repulsion now. That's right, Paul continues, casting a mischievous glance at me, but the Navy man doesn't notice. In fact, looking at you, are you sure your mother wasn't a grox and your father a lonely farmer?
With that, he stands on the spot and marches off, the thick heels of his maple boots thudding loudly on the wood-paneled floor. Paul and Orin just burst out laughing, and I can see his shoulders tense even more. It's a couple of minutes before we can control it ourselves. Each time I look at Paul, I can see his innocent face, and the lieutenant's enraged look. Hasn't even got a damned knee. Paul says when he's calmed down a little, standing looking out of the nearest viewport, looking at pale against the blackness of the high-arched main dome that stretches out at least another 10 meters above this haze. One thought that he willing to draw that name, player tension, as it attends. He's set to get on the session of Hito's leading the book, read in player stating it's sad. As the ship, or the man who found it. No name, no name, Paul mutters to himself for a moment, before turning to look at me, his hand and hook clasped behind his back, like an officer or something. I've just had a thought. No name probably means it's a dead system. No life-bearing worlds, right? Could be, I say, though I wouldn't really know. Unlike Paul, who was brought up by the School of Progemium, my education and consisted more of how to work a last slave, parry an axe blow with a crowbar. Fair to. 500 billion, sir, I asked, totally confused and unsure what the colonel is talking about. When we broke the Tyranid fleet attacking like our foe, much of it was not destroyed, he tells me, leaning forward to rest his elbow from the polished marble of the desk, his black-gloved hands crossed in front of him. That part of High Fleet Kraken was simply shattered. Much of it we managed to locate and destroy while the Tyranids were still reeling from their defeat. However, we believe a sizable proportion of the survivors that attacked Takar full coalesced into a new fleet, heading in a different direction. It is impossible to say exactly where they are heading, but reports from monitoring stations and patrol vessels indicate that its course might lead straight into the heart of the sector we are now in, the Typhon sector. If we had let them have Ishar full, we might have mustered more of a defense and destroyed the Tyranids utterly rather than scattering them to hell and back where we cannot find them and it is impossible to track them down until too late. Topic, Kalanidak. Topic, so instead of losing a planet, we could lose the whole of Typhon sector. I ask, finally catching on to what the colonel implied. That's where 500 billion people might die. Now do you see why it is important that we know exactly where this high fleet is heading? He asks, an earnest look on his bright face. Tolik reddens. I certainly do, sir, I reply, my head reeling with the thought of what could happen. It's so many people you can't picture it. It's fast more than a hive, more than an entire hive world. 500 billion people, all of them devoured by hideous, unfeeling aliens, and the Tyranids couldn't be stopped. Topic. In pre-Shaman slightly different this time. We're defending one of our own factories against shapeless green men I've never seen. When Milo birds, the Massimo bird spawns College Jonavarus rides carried by Marigold fun called Kids and Diamonds, before they hiss and cackle at me as they charge, their vaguely humanoid bodies shifting and changing, covered with worm-like scales. A sound close by pulls me from my sleep and I casts a shadow over me. Before I can do anything, something heavy falls on the face and pushes down over my mouth and nose, stifling me. I lash out, but my fist connects with thin air and something hard rammed into my gut, expelling what little air is in my lungs. I flail around helplessly for another second. I can hear the other man panting hard, feel the warmth of his body on top of me. The cough on my face smells rank with old sweat, making me want to gag even more. It's suddenly the weight lifts off me and I hear a shrill titter and gasp. I throw off the thing on my face, noting it's a shirt, and I glance up to see Rollis. Behind him is Cronin, a sock wrapped around the traitor's throat, a knot in it to press hard against his windpipe. The ex-lieutenant diddles again. Dox and Vengeance shall be the Emperor's, said St. Taphistus. Cronin laughs, wrenching harder on the improvised garrote and pulling Rollis backwards onto the decking. Cronin leans over Rollis' shoulder, twisting the sock tighter, and bites his ear, blood dribbling onto his chin and down Rollis' neck as he looks up and grins at me. Rollis' face is going blue now, his eyes bulge under his heavy set brow. I clamber to my feet, unsteady, my head still light from being choked. Letting go, Cronin, I say, taking a shaky step towards them. Killing Rollis like this will just get Cronin executed, and me as well, probably. The camels ordered it before, he won't hesitate to do it again. And the Emperor's thanks for those who have been bountiful in their gifts will be eternal, he replies, a painted look on his military narrow face, licking the blood from his lips. Topic. Pilot. Do it, I say quietly. With another pleading look, Cronin lets go and Rollis slumps to the deck, panting and clutching his throat. And I put a foot against his chest and roll him over, pinning his unresisting body to the floor. I lean forward, crossing my arms and resting them on my knee, putting more weight onto his labored chest. Uncatches, you haven't suffered your crimes enough yet, it's too soon for you to die, I hiss at him. And when you do, I'm going to be one that does it. This is not a good idea, Limskret says, before he gives a deep sigh and takes a swig from his canteen. We are taking a quick resting break from the march, sitting in the jumble mud. All around birds are chattering, whistling and screeching in the trees. Flies of size of your front buzz past, and I bat one away that settles on my arm. Who can tell what I might catch if it bit me? Other insects flit around on brightly patterned wings, and a beetle bigger than my foot scuttles into the light on the far side of the track, 3 passage meters away. The air is sultry, soaking us in humidity and our own sweat, which pours from every part of my body even though I'm resting. Topic. What's not a good idea? I ask with a sour look. Marching through this green hellhole, getting slowly eaten by flies, drowning our own sweat and choking on sulfur fumes. I can't see why that's not a good idea. No, none of that, he says, waving a dismissive hand. I'm talking about following this trail. Topic. Finding this trail is the only good thing that's happened since we made planetfall on this Emperor-forsaken jungle world. I tell this 7-3 screed, as chiefed around Cashel fit 7.4 men, just say for the country have made the undergrowth.
I mean, we've lost 8 men already in just 15 hours. Drowned in swamps, fallen down hidden crevasses, poisoned by spinathorns, infected by bleed eye and the black vomit, bitten by snakes and birds. Troken's lost his leg to some damn swamp rat thing, and we're all going to die horribly unless we can find the outpost in the next day or two. Do you know why there's a trail here? Asks Lindskred, glancing sideways at me as he sits down gingerly on a fallen log, his lean, muscled frame showing through the clinging tightness of his sweat-sodden shirt. Topic: Quality. I don't know, because the Emperor loves us. I say, teasing the sodden sock from my throat and wringing out the sweat and Mark tried to the better stranging NTC. It is very interested that because creatures move along here regularly, he says, wrinkling his nose at my ministrations on my feet. They travel along here frequently, thus forming the trail. Very interesting, I tell him dryly, sitting on my damp footwear. I led the hunting back home on the estate, he says sagely, screwing the cat back on the water bottle. Trode was, road. What the fry, I hear myself saying before I leap forward, grabbing Lindskog's collar in one hand and dragging him free. I can hear the shouts of the other men from across its broad, flat back, stoic commands from the colonel cutting through the hysterical yang. The reptile shuffles forward a little, now almost at right angles to the track, its back hunching up to give it more to room. I roll forward to pre-insulator to make a drag for the rifle still hanging from its midriff. I miss it the first attempt and the creature shifts its weight, the rifle butt cracks painfully against my knuckles. Spitting incoherent curses, I duck forward again, and narrowly stepping aside as it backs up once again, and manage to get one hand on the less gun. I put my shoulder to the stock, heave upwards, straining every muscle in my back and legs, my fleet slipping and sliding in the mud. My efforts are rewarded to a plaintive howl of pain, and it thrashes around even more violently. Its rear legs becoming tangled in the forms of a bush next to the trail, and it sips for allurement. The vast bulk of its underside crashes down onto the top of my helmet, knocking me flat to chest, lie face in a puddle. The last gun sleeps from my grip once more. Dark red blood spills freely from the wound now, splashing onto my head and shoulders. The lizard's heaving itself backwards and forwards, left and right, trying to angle its head on them, either to attack me or perhaps to pull the bayonet free. I knock single which I roll sideways just as a back foot thuds into the mud where I was lying, spinning out from underneath the monstracula. I'm covered head to toe in mud and blood, spluttering and spitting dirty water from my mouth. Through grime-filled eyes I see Colonel leaping through the rain, Pow's sword clenched in his fist, the rain hissing off its searing blue blade. Without a sound his lunges forward, the power sword shearing through the creature's muzzle, a great hunk of burnt flesh flopping to the floor. It rears up, slashing its front paws through the space the Colonel occupied a moment before, but he's already sidestepped to the left. As the lizard lowers its head again, looking for its prey, the Colonel's arm stabs outward with a precise move, plunging the power sword through its right eye. I see the point of the blade protruding a few centimeters from the top of the giant beast's skull, and then threshes wildly for a moment, tearing the sword from the Colonel's grasp and forcing him to take a step backwards. Everyone jumps back hurriedly as its death throes continue, and I have to push myself to my feet and leap aside again as it stumbles towards where I lay. With a thud that reverberates along the ground, the monstrosity finally collapses, the air of its last breath whistling out of its ruined face. The Colonel marches up to the gigantic corpse and pulls his power sword free, as easily as if he was sliding it out of the scabbard, and with no more ceremony either. He looks around at us, slipping the sword back into its sheath. He glances down, and with a casualness I would have thought forced if I didn't know the Colonel, wipes flecks of blood from its basket hilt with handkerchief pulled from one of his deep grapefruit pockets. Topic: a government. Alright, man, he says, adjusting how the scabbard hangs against his leg, find out who is dead and who can carry on. And with that, the whole incident is over, just a few more deaths in the bloody history of the last chances. We stumble into Falls Head Station later the same day, just as the sun is setting. 1 minute we're in thick jungle, the next there's a rough pathway and buildings to either side. The whole outpost is covered with vines and trailing leaves, woven around the walls and roofs of the rock-creek shelters in a near-continuous mass. What passes for the roads are little more than nut tracks, yet the odd slab of stone showing through the dense moss underfoot. There's no sign of life at all, just the normal sounds of the jungle. Topic: Mange. Rated Testons, and typically has been more to it something. In fact, them particularly, with Shither, despite the boiling heat. It's like the people here have disappeared, snatched up by the hand of an unknown god. Something unholy is at work here, I can feel it in my bones. Topic: Enmei sides. Deciding to see if there's anyone around, I force open the nearest door, leading into a square building just to my left. Inside it's dark, but from the fitful light coming from the doorway I can see that the building is deserted. There are a few scattered pieces in furniture, hewn from wood, probably from the surrounding trees. I see a fire pit in the middle of the one-room quarters, but the ashes inside are sodden with rain dripping from the imperfectly covered chimney vent above. As I stalk around in the darkness, my foot scents something skittering along the floor. I flounder around for a moment to recover whatever it was that I disturbed, and my hand comes to rest on something vaguely oval and leathery. But I bring it outside to have a look, where Cronin and Gappo are waiting, supporting the half-dead form of Franks. The sergeant didn't seem too badly hurt from his encounter with the lizard, just a grazed back and a few broken ribs, but a couple of hours ago had begun to get feverish. The lacerations on his chest have begun to multiply, you can smell the disease from several paces away. He was holding too functious, in kept cautions in function part. Most of the ice patients separated on a certain non-fight and western cap table. Marine Way, more used to present unfavorable to etisets. Don't think it's because he's hungry, more likely memories of his time on Fortuna 2 coming back to life in his head. He sounds stuck in the past at the moment, replaying what was probably the most important event in his life over and over again. The object in my hands is about 30 centimeters long and looks very much like a bunch of dead leaves connected together at one end in a small bundle of fibers. Topic: Full secting of 2.5. Topic: Position arteria of the single point in 1973 and 47% of the revenues, giving shitting whatever it is, it can wait, I tell the ex-preacher. We need to get the wounded to the infirmary as soon as possible.